I was 16 in the summer of 2003, and the world smelled like burnt CDRTKS and coconut sunscreen, and the particular desperation of being the wrong kind of girl in the right kind of suburb. My name is Jenna. I wore cargo pants with frayed hems and Converse sneakers I'd drawn on with Sharpie. I carried a Discman in my backpack and a composition notebook filled with poetry no one would ever read. I had a Zanga with 12 subscribers, 9 of which were spam bots. I had a crush on Seth Cohen from the OC and a real-life crush on no one, because real-life boys at Westfield High looked through me like I was a window they were waiting to pass. I had one friend. Her name was Megan, and she had been my neighbor since I was 8, since her family moved into the Colonial across the street with the basketball hoop and the perfect lawn. Megan was everything I was not: blonde, confident, the kind of girl who could wear low-rise jeans without worrying about her stomach, who could say like 17 times in one sentence and still be voted class president. She was the Rachel to my Monica, the Serena to my Blair, the popular girl who had inexplicably chosen the weird neighbor as her project. I didn't question it. When you're 16 and invisible, you'll take any light that falls on you, even if it's borrowed. But there was someone who saw me without light. Someone who found me in the dark. His screen name was Derek Loves the Smiths. He found me in an AIM chat room for indie music and poetry, a room I visited at 2 a.m. when my mother was asleep and my Discman batteries had died, and I needed to believe that someone liked the same things I did. "Hey," he typed, "you like bright eyes." I stared at the message for 5 minutes. No one had ever messaged me first in a chat room. I was wallpaper. I was background noise. "They're okay," I typed back, trying to sound cooler than I was. "Connor Oberst is kind of overrated." "Liar," he replied, "you have Lua on repeat right now." "I can tell." I laughed out loud, alone in my room, and something in my chest that had been closed for a very long time cracked open just enough to let in air. Derek was 20, he said. He lived in Chicago. He was studying creative writing at Northwestern, which sounded impossibly glamorous to a girl who had never been west of Ohio. He wrote emails that read like short stories, long, literary, full of references to the bell jar and catcher in the rye and bands I'd never heard of but immediately downloaded on Napster. He sent me mixed CDs in padded envelopes with my name written in careful block letters. Bright Eyes, Death Cab for Cutie, The Postal Service. Songs that felt like they had been written specifically for the loneliness I couldn't name. I listened to them on my Discman walking to school, walking home, lying on my bed staring at the ceiling fan and imagining a life where someone understood me. We never webcammed. His was broken, he said. He sent photos instead, scanned images of a boy with messy brown hair and green eyes, and a half smile that made my stomach hurt. He was beautiful in a way that felt attainable, not like the models in magazines or the actors on TV. He looked like someone who would shop at thrift stores and read poetry in coffee shops. He looked like someone who would love me. I sent him my poetry. He sent me his stories. We talked about running away to Portland, to Seattle, to anywhere that wasn't Westfield, Ohio. We planned to meet after I graduated. Chicago was only 6 hours away. He said we could finally be real. I believed him. I believed him because I needed to believe in something, and Derek was the only something that had ever chosen me. What I didn't know, what I couldn't know, was that Megan was sitting in her bedroom across the street, reading every email I forwarded her, laughing with her real friends about the pathetic emo girl who had fallen in love with a ghost. What I didn't know was that my own mother was in on the joke. My mother, Diane, had always preferred Megan. I knew this the way you know the weather, not by being told, but by feeling it on your skin every single day. When Megan and I were 8, Diane organized playdates that I didn't want. "Megan is such a lovely girl," she would say, brushing my hair too hard. "So confident, so normal. You could learn from her, Jenna." When we were 12, Diane bought Megan a birthday present, a Tiffany bracelet, and gave me a book on improving your social skills. "Megan's mother told me she's worried about you," Diane said, "that you don't have other friends. You should be grateful Megan puts up with you." When I was 14 and told Diane that the girls in my class were writing "Jenna is a freak" on the bathroom stalls, she sighed. "Megan never complains about bullying. She just rises above it. Why can't you be more like her?" Megan never complained because Megan was the bully. She was the one who wrote on the stalls. She was the one who started the rumors, who laughed at my poetry, who accidentally spilled soda on my backpack and watched me cry in the bathroom. But she did it with a smile, with a "just kidding," with the plausible deniability that made teachers adore her and my mother defend her. "You're too sensitive," Diane would say when I tried to explain. "Megan is just teasing, that's what friends do." By 16, I had stopped trying. I had Derek. Derek who never teased. Derek who called my poetry beautiful, who said my sensitivity was a gift, who made me feel like the person I was, weird, intense, too much, was exactly who I was supposed to be. I told Megan about him, of course. I told her everything. She was my best friend, my only friend, the girl who had saved me from total isolation. She squealed appropriately, asked for details, demanded to read his emails. "He sounds too good to be true," she said once, her eyes sharp in a way I mistook for concern. "He is good," I said. "He's real." "Sure, Jen," she smiled, and I felt the familiar twist of uncertainty. Was she mocking me? Was I being paranoid? But then she hugged me and the doubt dissolved. Megan was my friend. Megan was the only person who put up with me. I couldn't afford to doubt her. I couldn't afford to doubt my mother either, though I should have. The night I told Diane about Derek, she was painting her nails at the kitchen table, watching American Idol with the volume too loud. "Some boy from the internet," she said, not looking up. "Jenna, really, you know those people are never who they say they are." "He's different," I said. "He sends me music. He writes me stories. He understands me." Diane laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Understands you. He doesn't even know you. You've never met. This is exactly why you don't have real friends, Jenna. You live in fantasy worlds." She looked up then, her eyes meeting mine in the way they rarely did, direct, assessing, cold. "Megan's right. You need to get out more. Stop hiding in your room with your computer. Real girls don't fall in love with screen names." Real girls. The phrase followed me back to my room, settled into my chest like a stone. I wasn't a real girl. I was a fantasy, a ghost, a girl who loved the wrong things in the wrong way, but Derek loved me. Derek made me real. And that was enough until it wasn't. Welcome to Little Bunny Stories. If you're new here, my name is Jenna, and this is the story of how I learned that the people who were supposed to love me were the ones who paid to watch me break. If you've ever had a mother who chose your bully over you, if you've ever been the punchline in a joke you didn't know was being told, subscribe. This one's for you. Here's my story. The summer before senior year, Derek and I made plans. Real plans. I would graduate in June 2006, take the bus to Chicago, finally meet him at the Art Institute where we would stand in front of Nighthawks and hold hands and be as real as the paintings. I bought a dress for the occasion, vintage, from a thrift store, the kind of dress a girl in a Death Cab song would wear. I saved my allowance for 6 months. I told Megan everything, showed her the dress, the bus ticket, the printed MapQuest directions I had carefully highlighted. "You're really going to do this?" she asked, and there was something in her voice I couldn't read. Not excitement, not jealousy, something colder. "I have to," I said. "I have to know he's real." "He's real," Megan said, too quickly. "Of course he's real. I worry about you, Jen. What if he's different in person? What if you're disappointed?" "I won't be," I said, and I believed it with the absolute faith of a girl who had nothing else to believe in. The week before graduation, Derek went offline. His AIM status changed from away to offline and never came back. His emails bounced. The phone number he had given me, a Chicago area code I had memorized, had whispered to myself like a prayer, was disconnected. I waited. I told myself his internet was down, that he was sick, that something terrible had happened and he would contact me as soon as he could. I checked my email every 10 minutes. I sat in the AIM chat room for hours, waiting for his screen name to appear. I called the disconnected number so many times that my cell phone, a Nokia brick with a custom dashboard confessional faceplate, ran out of battery. 3 days, 5 days, a week, I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping. I sat in my room with Derek's mixed CDs on repeat, the songs that had once felt like love letters now sounding like mockery. I will follow you into the dark, but he hadn't followed me anywhere. He had vanished, and I was alone in the dark I had been trying to escape. Megan found me, of course she did. She had a key to my house, my mother had given her 1 year ago, of emergencies. She let herself into my room, found me on the floor surrounded by empty CD cases and crumpled poems, and she held me. "He's gone," I sobbed into her shoulder. "He's gone and I don't know why." "I know, sweetie, I know," she stroked my hair the way my mother never did. "I'm so sorry, I should have warned you, boys on the internet, they're never real, they just play with girls like us." "Not like us," I whispered. "Just like me. No one would play with you, you're perfect." "Oh, Jenna," she pulled back, looked at me with eyes that were almost tender. "Almost. I'm not perfect, I'm just better at protecting myself, and I'm going to protect you now, okay? No more internet boys, no more fantasy worlds, just us, real friends. She stayed that night. She made me soup from a can, the way my mother never did, because Diane didn't cook. Because Diane was at her book club or her yoga class or her whatever that didn't include me. Megan slept in my bed, held my hand, whispered that I would be okay. The next morning Diane found us like that. She didn't ask what was wrong. She looked at Megan, curled protectively around me, and her face softened in a way it never did for me alone. "You're such a good friend, Megan," she said. "Jenna is lucky to have you." "I know, Mrs. K," Megan said, her voice thick with sleep and something else, satisfaction. "I'll always be here for her, always." Diane smiled, actually smiled, at Megan, while I lay there hollowed out by a loss she didn't ask about, a grief she didn't acknowledge, a daughter she didn't see. "Make sure she eats something," Diane said, already turning to leave. "And Jenna, clean your room. It smells like a funeral in here." She left. Megan squeezed my hand, and I buried my face in my pillow and cried for a boy who had never existed, while my best friend and my mother stood in the doorway, sharing a look I was too broken to interpret. I rebuilt, because that's what you do when you're 17 and have no other options. I graduated from Westfield High with a GPA that got me into Ohio State, mostly because studying was easier than feeling. I deleted my Zanga, threw away my poetry notebooks, traded my Discman for an iPod Classic, white, like everyone else's, anonymous, normal. Megan stayed my best friend. She was my rock, my anchor, the person who dragged me to parties I didn't want to attend, who introduced me to her college friends with "This is Jenna, she's shy but she's cool," who never let me retreat completely into the shell I kept trying to build around myself. She was also the person who, every time I mentioned Derek, every time I wondered what had happened, would shake her head and say, "Let it go, Jen, he was a fantasy, I'm your real friend, I'm the one who's here." She was here. She was always here. At my mother's house for Sunday dinners that Diane insisted on, Megan's practically family, at my dorm room at OSU on weekends when she should have been at her own school, at my side during holidays when my mother asked about Megan's love life and ignored my classes, my grades, my tentative steps toward a future I wasn't sure I wanted. "You're so lucky to have her," Diane said constantly. "Most girls would have abandoned you after that internet nonsense. Megan is loyal, she's the daughter I wish I had." She said it like a compliment, like I should be grateful that my bully was also my savior, that my mother's rejection was softened by her adoption of my replacement. I was supposed to smile, to agree, to feel lucky that I had anyone at all. I smiled, I agreed, I felt nothing. By my junior year of college, I was studying computer forensics, a choice that surprised my advisors, that surprised me. I told people it was about job security, about the growing field of digital investigation, about practical skills. The truth was simpler and more shameful. I wanted to understand what had happened. I wanted to know if Derek had been real, if there was some explanation, some technical glitch, some reason why the only person who had ever loved me had disappeared without a trace. I became good at it. Good at data recovery, at tracing IP addresses, at finding the metadata that people forgot they left behind. Good enough that my professor, Dr. Chen, recommended me for an internship with the state cybercrimes unit. Good enough that I stopped thinking about Derek as a ghost and started thinking about him as a puzzle. The puzzle solved itself on a Tuesday in October 2009. It was a class project, data recovery from damaged storage media. We were given old CDs, floppy disks, corrupted hard drives, and asked to extract whatever we could. I chose a spindle of CD-RTCS from my personal collection, disks I had burned in high school, backups of backups, files I had forgotten I kept. Among them was the first mix CD Derek had sent me, the one with the Sharpie label, asterisk for Jenna who understands. Asterisk I had listened to it 1,000 times, had memorized every transition, every hidden track, every scratch that made certain songs skip at certain moments. I had never thought to look at what else might be on it. The recovery software found the music files easily, but it also found something else, a hidden directory, invisible to standard file browsers, containing a single text document. Metadata.txt, I opened it. The file contained technical information, creation date, software used, hardware ID. Most of it meant nothing to me. But one line stopped my breath, asterisk computer name, Megan PC asterisk asterisk user, Megan Ashford asterisk asterisk creation date, August 14, 2003, asterisk August 14, 2003. 2 days before Derek sent me his first message. 2 days before he found me in that chat room, before he asked about bright eyes, before he became the center of my universe. Megan's computer. Megan's user account. Megan's creation date. I sat in the computer lab for an hour, staring at the screen, unable to process what I was seeing. It was a mistake, a coincidence. Megan had borrowed a computer or bought a used one but I knew. I had always known, somewhere beneath the gratitude and the need and the desperate belief that someone loved me. I had known that Megan was too perfect, too present, too satisfied with my dependence. I had known that her comfort after Derek disappeared was too quick, too complete, too practiced. I had known, and I had buried the knowing because knowing meant that the only friend I had was the architect of my destruction. I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I opened my laptop and began to work. What I found over the following weeks would have broken me if I weren't already broken. I traced Derek's AIM account through old logs I had saved, through the IP addresses recorded in my router's history. My mother had never changed the default password, had never checked the logs, had never cared enough to monitor what I did online. The IP addresses matched. Every time Derek was online, the IP resolved to Megan's house. Not sometimes. Not occasionally. Every single time. When Megan was at her grandmother's for spring break, Derek was offline. When Megan was home, Derek was active. The correlation was absolute, mathematical, undeniable. I found the photos. The ones Derek had sent me, the beautiful boy with the messy hair and green eyes. I ran them through reverse image search, a tool I had learned in my forensics classes, and found the source within minutes. An Australian skate magazine, 2001. A model named Caleb, who had never been to America, who had no idea his face had been used to destroy a teenage girl in Ohio. I found the emails. Not Derek's, I had deleted those in a fit of grief, a ritual purging that now felt like destroying evidence. But I found Megan's. She had used the same password for everything, Okfin for Eva. Her obsession with the OC immortalized in a string of characters she never thought to change. I didn't hack her account, I just tried the password. On her email, her MySpace, her Facebook, it worked every time. On her MySpace, I found messages to her real friends, the popular girls from Westfield High, the ones who had mocked me, who had written on bathroom stalls, who had made my life a daily exercise in endurance. Messages from 2004, 2005, 2006. *OMG, you should see the emails she sends him. So pathetic. Derek, you are the only one who understands my soul. LOL, my soul, who talks like that? *update, she showed her mom the mix CD. Her mom said she was being ridiculous. I love Mrs. K, she gets it. Tonight I told her I was worried about her fantasy world. She cried. I recorded it, we'll play at prom. And then, the worst, a message thread from May 2006, the week before Derek was scheduled to disappear. Okay, so I'm ending it on Friday, the day before she's supposed to take the bus. She's literally bought a dress. Should I tell her the day of, like let her get on the bus and then nothing? No, do it before, her friend replied. What if she actually goes to Chicago and asks around, that could get weird. Good point. Friday it is. I'm going to change my password and delete the account while she's at school. She'll come home to nothing. Can't wait to see her face. You're evil lol. I'm thorough, there's a difference. I read the thread 3 times. Then I read it again. Then I closed my laptop and walked to the bathroom and threw up until there was nothing left in my stomach but bile and betrayal. But I wasn't done. Because the worst was still waiting. Megan had a live journal. Not her public one, the polished performance of a popular girl's life, parties, boyfriends, vague complaints about drama. A private one, locked behind a friends-only filter that no one was actually on. A journal where she documented things she didn't want the world to see. I found it because she had linked it in an old email, forgotten, buried in the archives of her Okfin for Eva account. The password was the same. Of course it was. The first entry was from September 2003, 1 month after Derek appeared. Project Derek is go. Found the perfect mark, Jenna K, my neighbor, total loser. She literally has no other friends. This is going to be so easy. I scrolled, I read. I became a character in a story I hadn't known was being written. She had planned everything. The screen name, Derek Loves the Smiths, chosen because she knew I loved the Smiths. Because she had seen my CD collection. Because she had been paying attention to my vulnerabilities in a way I had mistaken for friendship. The photos, stolen from an Australian magazine, chosen because he looks artsy but not intimidating, like someone she could actually get. The emails, written in a voice she constructed from my Zanga posts, my poetry, my desperate need to be understood. She had studied me like a specimen, catalogued my likes, my fears, my syntax, built a person out of my own longing and then fed him back to me, word by word, song by song, lie by lie. And my mother had known. The entry was from March 2005. I remember the date because it was my birthday, my 17th, the one Diane had forgotten until Megan reminded her, the one where Megan brought a cake, and Diane said, "How sweet of you to remember," while looking at me like I was a disappointment she couldn't name. *Le Conte a Diane Sauber Derek Hoy, Megan wrote. Not English, Spanish, which she had studied for 3 years, which she knew I couldn't read. She had hidden this in plain sight, confident that even if I found her journal I would never understand. *Si Rio. Dijo que Jenna sempre fu dramatica, que necesitaba una lección saber cómo funciona el mundo real. Mi pidió que no le diera a Jenna que lo sabía. Es mejor que aprenda no confiar en extraños, dijo. Además, tú eres la única amiga que tiene. No querrás que se enoje contigo. My sugra del alma. Face with tears of joy, I didn't need to speak Spanish to understand. I used Google Translate, my hands shaking, my vision blurring. And the words came back in English, cold and precise. I told Diane about Derek today. She laughed. She said Jenna was always dramatic, that she needed a lesson about how the real world works. She asked me not to tell Jenna that she knew. It's better that she learns not to trust strangers, she said. Besides, you're the only friend she has. You don't want her to get mad at you. My soulmate mother-in-law. Face with tears of joy. Diane knew. My mother knew that Derek was fake, that Megan had created him, that I was being manipulated and mocked and destroyed. And she had laughed. She had called me dramatic. She had asked Megan to keep the secret, not to protect me but to teach me a lesson. The lesson was this: I was not worth protecting. I was not worth truth. I was a problem to be managed, a daughter to be endured, a cautionary tale about what happens when you love the wrong things in the wrong way. I sat with the knowledge for 3 days. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just sat. Let it settle into my bones, my blood, my DNA. Let it become part of me, the way my brown eyes were part of me, the way my awkwardness was part of me, the way my mother's indifference had always been part of me. And then I began to plan. I didn't confront Megan. I didn't confront Diane. I went to class, to my internship, to Sunday dinners where Diane asked about Megan's new boyfriend and I smiled and said he sounds nice, while imagining the moment when everything would change. Megan got engaged in December 2010. Ryan Caldwell, a marketing executive she met at a charity gala, the kind of man who wore suits that cost more than my car and smiled like he had never been hurt. She called me immediately, squealing, demanding that I be her maid of honor. "You're my oldest friend," she said, and I heard the truth beneath the lie. I was her oldest project, her longest conquest, the girl she had broken and rebuilt so many times that she couldn't imagine a major life event without me there to witness her triumph. "I'd be honored," I said, and I meant it in a way she didn't understand. The wedding was scheduled for June 2011 at a country club outside Columbus. 200 guests, a band, a custom dress from a designer in New York. Megan sent me links to bridesmaid dresses, to bachelorette party venues, to Pinterest boards of our friendship journey that included photos I didn't remember taking, moments that had been staged for her narrative. I played my part perfectly. I organized the bachelorette party, a weekend in Chicago, ironically, at a hotel near the Art Institute where I had once planned to meet Derek. I helped her choose the flowers, the cake, the first dance song. I stood beside her at the dress fitting and told her she looked beautiful, and I meant it, because she did, and because beauty has nothing to do with the soul beneath the skin. Diane was involved, of course. She had always been involved in Megan's life in ways she had never been involved in mine. She helped address invitations. She hosted the bridal shower at our house, my house, technically, though I hadn't lived there since starting college. She cried when Megan tried on her veil. Actual tears, the kind she had never shed for me. "You're like a daughter to me," Diane told Megan, loud enough for me to hear. "The daughter I always wanted." I smiled. I poured champagne. I made a toast about friendship and loyalty and the kind of love that lasts forever. And I prepared. The night before the wedding, I visited the country club under the pretense of checking the floral arrangements. The DJ was setting up his equipment, a young guy with a laptop and a sound system that cost more than my tuition. I introduced myself as the maid of honor, asked if I could load a special slideshow for the reception, a surprise for the bride. Of course, he said, handing me a flash drive. Just copy it to the reception folder. It'll play automatically when you trigger it. I had prepared the slideshow over months. Not in anger would have made it sloppy, obvious, dismissible. I prepared it in the same spirit Megan had used to create Derek. With patience, with precision, with the absolute certainty that the person receiving it would never see it coming. The first slides were innocent, photos of Megan and me as children, as teenagers, as college students. The kind of nostalgia that makes wedding guests smile and reach for tissues. I had curated them carefully, chosen images where we looked happy, close, inseparable. The lie that had been sold to me now sold back to the audience. Then the transition, a screenshot of an AIM conversation, Derek's first message to me. Hey, you like bright eyes. Next to it, a screenshot from Megan's live journal, * Project Derek is go, found the perfect mark. * The crowd murmured. Megan, at the head table, turned to look at the screen, her smile faltering. More slides. Emails from Derek side by side with entries from Megan's journal, the same phrases, the same metaphors, the same voice. The Australian model's photo next to Megan's entry, * found the perfect picture. Generic enough that she'd believe anything. * IP address logs showing Derek's location matching Megan's house. The MySpace messages to her friends, mocking my poetry, my soul, my pathetic need to be loved. Megan stood up. What is this? She said. Her voice too high, too bright, the performative confusion of a woman who had never been caught. Jenna, what are you doing? I didn't answer. I clicked to the next slide. It was the Spanish entry, the one about Diane. I had translated it, presented it in both languages, the original and the English beneath. I had highlighted the key phrases, * Diane laughed. She said Jenna was always dramatic. She asked me not to tell Jenna that she knew. * The crowd was silent now. 200 people, frozen, watching a story they didn't understand unfold in PowerPoint animations. I saw Diane in the front row, her face white, her hands gripping the tablecloth. That's a lie, Diane said, standing. That's fabricated. Jenna, stop this. Stop it right now. I clicked again. The final slide was not a document. It was a photo Megan and me at 13, sitting on my front porch, arms around each other, smiling at a camera held by Diane. Below it, in Comic Sans, the font Megan had used in her Derek emails, * this is not revenge. This is a return to sender. The sender does not exist. * Then I spoke. For the first time my voice filled the room, not through speakers or screens, but from my own throat, my own body, my own finally real self. My name is Jenna Kowalski, I said. For 3 years, the woman you are here to celebrate pretended to be a boy who loved me. She wrote me emails, sent me music, planned a future with me, all while laughing about it with her friends. And my mother, I looked at Diane, who was shaking now, actually shaking, my mother knew. She found it funny. She thought I needed a lesson. She chose Megan's cruelty over my pain every single time. I stepped away from the laptop toward the aisle. I'm not here to ruin a wedding. I'm here to reclaim a name. Derek wasn't real, but the girl who believed in him was, and she deserves better than to be a punchline in someone else's story. I walked toward the exit. Behind me I heard Ryan's voice, calm, cold, the tone of a man who had just understood something important. Megan, he said. Is this true? Ryan, baby, it's complicated. She was always so dramatic, you know how she is. I know how you are, he said. I know the games you play, the tests you give. I thought it was just with me. I thought I was special. A pause, we're done. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to see Megan's face or Diane's or the chaos I had unleashed. I had spent 8 years imagining this moment, and now that it was here, it felt less like victory and more like finally breathing after holding my breath for a very long time. I was at the door when Diane caught my arm. How could you? She hissed, her fingers digging into my skin. How could you humiliate me like this, in front of everyone? I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman who had given me life but never love, who had watched me break and called it drama, who had chosen my bully over me and then demanded my gratitude for the privilege. You humiliated yourself, I said. I just stopped pretending not to notice. I pulled my arm free and walked out. I drove home, not to the country club, not to the apartment I shared with 2 roommates near campus. Home, to the house where I had been 16 and heartbroken and invisible, to the porch where Megan and I had smiled for Diane's camera, to the room where I had fallen in love with a ghost. Diane's car wasn't there. She was still at the wedding, probably trying to salvage something, to explain, to be the mother of the bride she had always wanted to be. I packed quickly, clothes, books, my laptop, the iPod Classic that still held Derek's playlist, the essentials, the things that were mine. On my bed, I found something I hadn't packed, a box, unmarked, that I didn't recognize. I opened it. Inside was every mix CD Derek had sent me, every email printed and bound, every poem I had written him, returned in my own handwriting, and a note, in Diane's familiar script, asterisk. I kept these, I don't know why. Maybe because they were the only things you ever seemed to care about. Maybe because I wanted to understand what I couldn't give you. I'm sorry, I know that's not enough. It was never enough. I chose her because she was easy. You were always so hard, Jenna, so much. I didn't know how to love someone who needed so much. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Asterisk. I read it 3 times. Then I put it back in the box, put the box in my car, and drove away. I didn't know where I was going. I had no plan, no destination, no future I could imagine. I just drove west, toward Chicago, toward the city where Derek had never existed, where I had never arrived, where a different version of my life had ended before it began. I stopped at a motel somewhere in Indiana, a roadside place with flickering neon and a vending machine that ate my dollar. I sat on the bed, opened my laptop, and created a new live journal. Not Xanga. Xanga was dead, like most of the internet I had grown up with. But Live Journal still existed, barely, a ghost town of early 2000s confessions. The first post, asterisk. Today I stopped being a character in someone else's story. I don't know who I am now, but for the first time that's my question. Not hers, not theirs. Mine. Asterisk. I hit publish. I closed the laptop. And I put on the iPod, scrolled to the playlist Derek had made, the one with the postal service and bright eyes and death cab for cutie. The music that had been written by strangers, chosen by my enemy, fed to me as love. I listened. Not as a lie anymore, not as a trap, just as music. Good music, honestly chosen, even if the hands that selected it had been cruel. I could love the art without forgiving the artist. I could reclaim the songs without reclaiming the friendship. I fell asleep with Such Great Heights playing, the song about love and distance and the impossibility of connection. And for the first time in 8 years, I didn't dream of Derek. I dreamed of nothing, of silence, of a blank page that was finally mine to fill. I am Jenna Kowalski. I am 23 years old. I was catfished by my best friend, betrayed by my mother, and taught that love was something you earned by being less than you were. I am still learning that love, real love, doesn't require performance or gratitude or the erasure of your own needs. I am still learning to be hard, to be too much, to be the person I was always afraid to become. But I'm learning. And for the first time, the teacher is me. See you in the next story.